On today's show, we're diving into one of the most fascinating stories in the rum world, the rise, the fall, and the rediscovery of one of the most legendary distilleries ever. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dram Amateur Podcast, your go-to show for everything bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. I'm your host, Jason. Join me as I journey and explore the world of alcoholic spirits. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Dram Amateur Podcast. My name is Jason. Thank you all so much for listening today. I certainly appreciate it. If you do not already follow me on any of the social media sites, I would really appreciate it if you do. Great places for you to collaborate with me to connect with you, learn a little bit more about each other, and hell, let's collaborate together. Let's talk. Let's get you on the podcast. Let's talk about things that are interesting to you. I'm an open book, man. Let's do it. You can find me on Instagram at Dram_Amateur. That is the home of the Dram Amateur Podcast. I also have a Facebook, X, and then what's the other one? What's the other one that Instagram has? Oh, geez, man. Old age, and it's a Sunday morning. My brain is not fully turned on yet. I also do things there as well. I'll be honest with you. In my excitement to post on Instagram, I frequently forget to post on Facebook or X or the other one. I don't remember what the other one is. Shit. But anyways, I always forget to post there. So the best place to find me is on Instagram, but definitely collaborate across the board on all of them. I got an exciting episode for you guys today. This is something that has been, well, here, let me do this, right? Let me talk to you about it. So today we're going to dive in to literally one of the most fascinating stories in the rum world. We're going to talk about the rise, the fall, and the rediscovery of the legendary Caroni Distillery. That's right, the distillery that I think all of us rum people, rum nerds, right, that are like, for me, it was the distillery I had to have a bottle from, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but buckle up. We're going to go on a tale that involves history, passion, and a bit of serendipity. We're going to talk about how Caroni rum became legendary after the distillery closed. We're going to talk about the role that collectors played in reviving this spirit. To be honest with you, I don't know how it ever collapsed. We'll talk about some of that. And then we'll talk about why Caroni rum commands such high prices today. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. We're talking about like the distillery, right? Like, oh, it's legendary. So we'll talk about that soon. But anyways, hey, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate it today. It's a Sunday morning. Recording's been a little wonky. Welcome to podcast world. It's funny, in the past, a few months ago, I recorded like 4 podcasts, scheduled in one day, scheduled them all to release and didn't do anything. And then I'm really glad I did that because life gets insane and gets busy. I've got 3 kids, a wife, travel for work itself, house to take care of, blah, 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 blah. And time just doesn't go back on my side anymore for recording podcasts. So I realized that I just released one this past Tuesday. I had to get another one going because I have travel coming up this week and probably a busy weekend next weekend. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's been nuts. It's also, so whenever you listen to this, I think it's going to release after the game. Yeah, in a couple weeks. I still have another week and a half from when this will release. My Niners play the Chiefs today, y'all. Yeah. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little excited. I will admit, I got up early this morning. I rocked and rolled. The wife and I went and got Waffle House. Love my Waffle House. Waffle House, if you ever want to sponsor this podcast, I would be forever grateful because I go to your place every single Sunday and have breakfast. Anyways, shameless like grab for like marketing dollars. But yeah, man, I am a huge huge Waffle House fan. My wife and I dig Waffle House. So yeah, I had to get some Waffle House in this morning. And now I get this really weird period between we're done with breakfast. I did all my adulting yesterday. I've got nothing to really do. And I got to start waiting for the 1 o'clock games to play, and we don't start till 4:30. So fingers crossed, go Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Let's hope we win. It's been an interesting season. Let's hope that everything continues to go well for us. But anyways, let's jump into the podcast and get started today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic and share some research with you guys. I think it'll be interesting for everybody to understand what this is, why it's so, I don't know, why it's such a legend, why it is what it is today, like from a collector standpoint, or even from an enthusiast standpoint, from a history standpoint. I think it would be really interesting to go through this. So we're going to talk about the famous, as I mentioned, the famous Caroni Distillery. Really excited to talk through this. So let me tell you a little bit about it first, right? So Caroni Distillery was founded in 1918 in Trinidad. It was founded on the Caroni Plains near the port of Spain, and it was a state-run and produced rum from its own sugarcane crops, originally part of the British colonial empire. There was some advantages in the location for where this all took place, right? Trinidad is in a very tropical climate. So if you think about that, it's very much alludes to the fact that the rum will age a lot faster. Tropical climates are good for growing sugarcane. Water supplies as well are also key in that also. So the proximity to the sugarcane fields really helped to produce and provide a really high quality molasses. So that was one of the location advantages. Also, when you talk about water, you need to sometimes use water to produce the distillate that then goes into the barrel and ages. The water was actually, for production, was taken from the nearby Caroni River. It was also believed that the low minerality in the river, from the water in the river, helped to provide the content, contributed to the Caroni's heavier style, right? So if it's more minerally, it may have impacted the flavor of the rum more, the sugarcane, aging in the barrel. But because the water had a very low mineral content, it's said and believed that helped to contribute to Caroni's heavier style. And so when I say heavier style, some of you might say, well, what does that mean? I think you'll learn a little bit more as we go through it. But when you're talking about heavier style rums, think about like heavier drinks, right? And I'm not talking about this from a viscosity standpoint, but we're talking about it from a flavor standpoint, right? So like if you drink like a lemon water, right? It's a little bit lemony, a little bit water. It's not like you're like eating like a lemon just by itself, right? So that's where I think it's in my opinion, now that I'm sitting here thinking about that, I think it's a good kind of thing, right? So heavier style, right? If you were to bite into a lemon, that's a heavier style because you're getting all the lemon. But if you were to take a lemon slice and put it in a glass of water, you're going to have lemon flavored water, but it's not going to be the same heavy style of like pungent in your mouth, right? The sourness, the bitterness, the acidity, all those things in your mouth are not going to be the same when you put a slice of lemon in water. As the same as if you would have just bit into a lemon. Now, I'm not comparing flavors to Caroni, but I'm saying like the heavier style of the rum that comes out of the distillate, it is much heavier in flavor, in darkness, in richness, and it's crazy wild. We'll talk about that here a little bit more. So their rise, Caroni's rise, coincided with the height of the British demand for Navy rum blends. So if you guys remember one of my last episodes, we discussed the influence of rum on pirates and the British Royal Navy and how it all worked. We had talked about how pirates drank rum. There was no rations. They were probably drunk and belligerent. We talked about how even like compared it to like Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean ride, where they're all just laying around this small town drinking rum, right? That's what we all imagine a pirate to do. There was no ration. There was just like, there it all is, go drink it. Where the British Royal Navy had a daily ration of rum. So every single day they had a daily ration of rum. It lasted quite a number of years. I think it just recently stopped in the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. So the height of that helped to fuel the rum blends, right? So Caroni is one of those rum blends that the British Royal Navy leaned on. And that they drank, right? And they liked that because of the strength and the flavor of the rum. This rum is not for people. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not for somebody who just steps into rum and tries rum for the first time. It is very unique and very different. While the distillery was in and running and working, they used both column stills and pot stills, and they produced a variety of the rum. When the distillery was running, it was owned by the Trinidad government in its later years. In the earlier years, it was owned by a company that then sold them to the Trinidad government. I think in 1975 they sold them. So the primary product that came out of the rum distillery we talked about was the heavy high ester rum made from local molasses. So it's from the island sugarcane industry, right? So everything was grown on the island, harvested on the island, broken down and prepared for distillation on the island, distilled on the island, and everything else. And the rum itself is known for its, like I said, the dark, robust, flavorful with complex smoky and oily profiles. This distillery was a huge piece of the economy for Trinidad for decades. So this distillery is founded back in 1918, right? So you're talking about decades of how important this was to Trinidad. It employed a lot of people on the island. I read one article through my research that said it employed close to 9,000 workers. So that's quite a bit. If you think about all the work has to go into doing that, right? Planting the sugarcane, growing the sugarcane, harvesting the sugarcane, breaking down the sugarcane, preparing it for whatever it's supposed to be used for, right? And then if you talk about the distillation process or whatever else the sugarcane is being used for within the industry and the market, it definitely, you could see how 9,000 people were needed to run a place like that. It has now this crazy cult following as well that we'll talk about here in a second. So let's talk about the decline and the closure of the distillery. So in the 1980s and 90s, right, if you look at the market for any dark liquor, honestly, rum, bourbon, whiskey, anything like that, the 80s and 90s killed that industry. If you think about it and you do research, back in the day, the big liquor of choice was vodka. Vodka was huge. It was gigantic. So in the 80s and the 90s, there was a huge global decline for demand in Trinidadian rum. And then that obviously impacted the local sugarcane industry and then impacted the distillery's profitability, and everything just started to collapse in Trinidad. So back in the day, there were 50 distilleries that were on Trinidad that were making rum and producing rum. And then by the 1950s, they started out with a lot of those back in the days. By the 50s, there was only about 8 distilleries left. So you can imagine you've gone from 50 plus back in the early 1900s. You're talking dwindling down to just 8 by the 1950s. And then in the late 90s, when this big global decline happened from the 80s and the 90s, you're looking at just two distilleries remained. Those 2 distilleries, one of them, it does not exist today. That's Caroni. The other distillery is, and I always struggle to see this, Angostura, the bitters company. So they're the only 2 that remained in the late 1990s after all this decline for Trinidadian rum. Sadly, to many of us, and this really helps. It really makes me question knowing what's going on in the spirit world today, and with liquor and alcohol and everything. It really makes me wonder what could have been. So in 2002, the government decided they were shutting down the distillery, right? Remember, the government owned it. They owned a 49% holding in the distillery. And their main reason for citing the shutdown was unsustainable operations. So you're talking, it's 2024 right now. So you're talking 22 years ago, the government in Trinidad made the decision, hey, we're done. We're shutting this down. And that really sparked, a lot of discussion, a lot of like concern, right? Because you had all those people that were working for the distillery, right? It had huge economic impacts to the local population, to the country itself, right? So there's a lot of impact there that then starts to trickle down to the people that actually live there. At the time, like I said, the Trinidad government owned about 49% of the holding in the distillery. And listen, they sold this to Angostura. Listen to what they sold this for. Now, back in 2002, I'm sorry, this may have been a lot. But if you really start thinking about the impacts and how things have changed so much in 22 years, I wonder where it would be now. They sold the distillery to them for $35 million. 35. That may sound like a lot to some people, and I really wonder how other people will think that when I say that. Like, wow, 35 million, that's a lot for a distillery, blah, blah, blah. But if you know what has happened in the market now, 22 years later, right, and the demand's increasing and the supply is increasing and the market's increasing, everything's increasing with this topic, and you start thinking about how much it could be worth now in those 22 years, and I also believe that I wonder if everything would be where it is now as far as the excitement about it. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the distillery here in a little bit and kind of what's transpired since 2002. And it'll help you kind of set your mind and where my mind is at when I say this to you, right? I want to set the stage because lots of things have happened in 22 years with this distillery. And you're probably like wondering, well, what has happened? It's a lot. A lot. And I wonder if, looking back on it now, if everything that's happening today would have still been the same with the rise and the boom in this market, right? And I think that has a lot to play into it if things would have changed. So as we talked about, right, huge economic blow to the Trinidad rum industry and to the local community. And what happened is when they closed the distillery, they just left thousands of barrels aging in the warehouses. So we thought that, like, when they closed on the distillery, we're like, look, Caroni's legacy is done. It's dead. It doesn't exist. It's not going to exist anymore. That's what people had thought, right? The history was gone. Everything was gone. But like, little did everybody know, did nobody know that like the stock that was produced and aging in barrels then just sat in a warehouse and sat there. Who knows how long it had been sitting there prior to the closure of the distillery? Who knows what the age was in the barrels? Who knows if there was just fresh barrels that was put in there, right? We don't know how many barrels. I was trying to find some information about like the count number, blah, blah, blah. Could not find that. But just think about like the hidden treasure that like is about to be discovered because of like this now increased love and want, and like the increase in the market as well, and how much it's going to change in 22 years. 22 years is not long. It's not long. It's not long at all. So I shake my head when I look at this and I think about this and I'm like, man, the Trinidad government made a mistake. So let's fast forward, right? So let's recap. Distillery started in 1918, produced sugarcane and rum all the way up to 2002, when the Trinidad government sold their 49% holding in the distillery and said, we're done. Fast forward to 2004. A gentleman by the name of Luca Gargono. So of Valere. So Valere, if you don't know who Valere is, they are an Italian spirits company. He discovered the remaining stock of Caroni barrels in Trinidad. So imagine being an independent, like a spirits company, right? I really wonder how this all transferred. Like, talk about like an awesome interview about something. Like, I would love to talk to Luca about this and say, sir, were you planning on going down there? Did you know it existed? Did you hear rumors? Were you just walking in kind of not knowing what you were going to see? Like, what exactly? How did this all go? So he came down and discovered the remaining stock of the Caroni barrels. So all those stock had been sitting there left to age for years, right? So for how, again, we talked about it, right? Who knows how the age of the barrels were when they closed down? Old stock, new stock, what the age was on that. But no matter what, that stuff was just left undisturbed. And it's a miracle if you think about it too, right? For 2 years, since the closure of the distillery till 2004, that stock just sat there. Nobody touched it. Nobody did anything with it. Nobody broke in, stole it, drank from it. Well, maybe they did, but they didn't do all of it, right? And it's really like, to me, it's interesting. But I do appreciate that when he found that, he realized the significance of it, right? He realized that is all from a distillery that no longer exists. They understand the history that went behind it, the impacts to the community, and he decided to bottle it, which is fantastic, under the Caroni brand. So he created limited edition releases then under the Caroni brand, which was fantastic, which I think it does a lot of, I think it helps to reignite the market. I think it helps to regenerate demand. I also wonder if that helps the Trinidad government realize like what they did and what the impact is, right? So the rums now, the limited edition rums that are being released are from casks that were aged between 12 to 30 years. So think about that, 30 years, even if most of that's in the tropics, right? Even if half that's in the tropics, you're talking about 2 times the aging. So like if you have something that ages 10 years in a barrel in the tropics, it's like 20 years of aging in that barrel. So because of the age of those rums, it makes them extremely rare. Obviously now too, right? You have a closed distillery. Whatever stock was left over, that's all that was left. And voila, now you have a rarity. Now you have something that is going to be in supply and limited supply and demand. And this is where I wonder if it changes the market a little bit, right? If the distillery had continued on and you start looking at it in 20 to 30 years, would there be the craze that it demands now? I think yes, but I can also argue for no. So fun fact, another fun thing about the distillery and the rums, right? So because of where it aged, the Angel's share on the rums on some of these barrels was as high as 85%. So think about that. You fill a barrel with rum and you go put it somewhere and you let it sit and you let it age. And then when you go to dump that barrel, you have only 15% left of the liquid that you had originally put in that barrel. So you lost 85%. That to me is crazy. But that's the Angel share, right? And depending on the heat, the content, the leakage of the barrel, there's a lot of things that go into the Angel sphere, mostly liquid evaporation. But 85% of that in some of those barrels was gone. And it's really interesting because so we put all this together, right? It's almost like the perfect storm, like the perfect, I don't know, how do I say storm, like marketing campaign, right? You have a distillery that closed in 2002. You have a rediscovery of barrels in 2004. And now I don't know, I really would like, I only know about the craze recently from recent years. I also wonder what it was like, between, 2004, right? He had to find it, make a deal for it, buy it, whatever it was. I also wonder how much he paid for some of these barrels. Like, I would love to know some of that stuff. I'd love to know the math behind all of it. But he had to get it back to wherever he's bottling it, I would assume in Europe. And then I really wonder when this craze took off, right? When did he hold it? Did he wait for the market to go back up? I'll have to do a little bit more research into that and see exactly how that went. But now there's this Caroni craze. And I won't lie to you, I'm part of it. Right? So Valère started releasing a lot of these bottles of rum, a ton of different bottles under different labels, packaging, rare releases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different ones out there. And I will tell you, it's a little overwhelming for somebody who wants a bottle of Caroni. I have a budget. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit as far as price-wise goes. But it's really difficult then to want something so bad, but you don't mind putting forth a little bit of that money to buy something, but you also don't want to be disappointed and get like I don't want to say a lesser quality, right? But you just don't know what the quality is, right? You when you have something that's so distinct as this and so unique, you want to get something that highlights the uniqueness. So when I say this, I don't want a Caroni that's been finished in a different barrel. I don't want a Caroni that was taken out of a barrel that it was put in at the distillery and then aged in a sherry barrel or something like that. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's absolutely amazing. But when you have a distillery that's iconic as Caroni is, I want to make sure that what I pour as my first sample of Caroni rum tastes like Caroni rum. I want the historic, unadulterated taste and flavor of what made it what it is today, right? So that's really one of the concerns that I know I had when I was looking for a bottle. So, with the rarity of this, secondary markets and prices skyrocketed, of course, just like everything else in this industry. You have something that's extremely limited. That limited availability of it then impacts it from being available. So there's scarcity with it, whether that scarcity is real scarcity or whether that scarcity is I'm looking at you, Buffalo Trace. Like mass, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like manufactured scarcity. Looking at you, Buffalo Trace. I really don't care. But it becomes a secondary, but there still becomes a scarcity of it that impacts the secondary market. And now bottles of this Caroni sell for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It is definitely something that then obviously the selling of that continues to feed into the rarity and the mystique behind all of it, right? So because there's not a lot of bottles left, there's still this mystique and this I wonder what it tastes like. I know, I'll tell you, like I went for years and years, like this was it was my unicorn. I have a lot of unicorns, but this was like this was the unicorn with the rainbow unicorn, horn on it, right? So like that was basically like that's what this was. Lots of collectors and speculators had obviously driven interest up, right? And then owning a piece of history obviously helps to fuel that as well, right? When I started to do the research into this, I said, man, I want something like this, right? I wonder what it tastes like. What's the hype behind it? Why is it a unicorn? Why does everybody pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Is it real? Is it fake? Like what is all behind it? But I will tell you, it's real. It truly, truly, truly is real. So I did some other research on some of the rum, like some of the Caroni rums and how much they've sold for on auction sites, just to kind of share some insight into that as well, because I think you have to understand like what the scarcity of it does to the actual market. So now not every bottle is priced like this. The numbers I'm about to give you are from the Rum Auctioneer site. It's from their auction that just ended in September. So it ended September 23rd. There's another auction going on now, which I looked at, and there's still some high prices on it. But I'm just looking at the Caroni stuff. So we're talking about 20-year-old Caroni from 1985. 22-year-old Caroni, 4,000 euro, 3,300 euro. A 1996 Caroni, 3,200 euro. A 1982 Caroni, 2,800 euro. So you're talking some pretty high prices. Now, I will tell you again, like every single bottle is not like this. Here's a 21-year-old Caroni for 950 euro, but 950 euros. Let's be honest, right? That much for a bottle is still a lot of money. It's a consumable product. You have to have money available to you to just go ahead and blow on those kind of things and spend that on a product that is going to be consumable, and you're just basically drinking that money away, which is fine, right? If you've got it, go for it. There's other affordable bottles I'm scrolling through. Here's a 23-year-old Caroni for 500. Here's a 20-year-old for 750. 22-year-old for 800. So there are bottles out there. There are some for 460 euro, 408 euro, 380 euro. But then you start getting into some of these, and I don't mean this in a bad way. You get into some of these off brands like bottling, independent bottlers, which I don't know a lot about. And then it kind of feeds into the, well, do I buy this or not? Do I risk it because I don't know who it came from? I don't know the bottling company. But you have, I see some here, 22-year-old, 352 euro, a 21-year-old, 312 euro. Let me go to the last page here and see. There are some 290 euro. There's another one for 295. So there are more affordable options if you're looking to get into this. But this is where I talked about earlier. Like, again, and I'm not saying these are the finished ones either, but I don't know why these are so less expensive than some of these other ones. And with that said, it also kind of makes me a little leery to buy it. And I'm not saying I'm not going to get a great product or something that I'm excited to own, But at the same time, it does make me question that if it's not released by Valère, who was the original finder of all this, did Valère get all the good barrels, and did somebody else get, I don't want to say the not good barrels, I'm sure they're good, but did somebody get other stock that Valère did not purchase? Him being the first one in there kind of, or Luca being the first one in from Valère kind of makes me go, maybe I should spend the money on that one. But when we start talking about the different flavors of this, right? And I mentioned earlier, this is not a rum for everybody. This is not a rum that gets you into rum. This is not any of those rums. It is very unique in every way, shape, and form you could ever imagine. It is, if you're moving from bourbon to rum, I would suggest probably Foursquare first, right? Then you start to look at the higher ester count rums, like your Hamptons and other Worthy Parks and stuff like that. And then you start getting into rums like this. And this is how I kind of got into it as well. So the flavors on the rum, let me kind of just describe to you. And this is where, as a collector and somebody who loves rum, you're like, really? Does it really have that? So there is often rich notes of tar, rubber, tropical fruits, smoke, and spice. So when I tell you that, right, it is very unique, right? Tar, rubber, tropical fruits. How can something made out of sugar cane, which you would think is sweet and, has all the complexity, right? From a tropical fruit perspective, a barrel perspective, right? But you start thinking about like tar and rubber, like smoke and spice, like what? Like, how do you get that? Well, that was the question that was always on my mind as well. And I think it was one of the things that made me want to find a bottle of this. It made me want to spend the money eventually, right? It made me want to spend the money. And then you start having conversations with yourself. You start going, how much am I willing to spend? If I don't buy a bottle of something else for a while and put my money aside and save up, should I be buying a consumable that's $300, $400, $500, $3,000? Should I be buying consumable? Should I? Do I? Should I? Well, all those questions, right? You start asking all those questions. What is it? What does it mean? What does it mean to have one? What does it mean to share that with people then that aren't going to be able to have it, right? There's a, for me, you guys know this, right? There's a community aspect to all this. I'm happy to say I have one. I'll tell you guys a little bit about it. I won't give up too much, but this past summer, I was introduced to somebody by somebody I know very well, and I had agreed at the time a while ago. I mean, we're talking almost a year ago now. I had agreed to trade. There were some bottles that this person was looking for that I had, and we had agreed to meet up and make a trade for the bottles. I think he was actually going to buy them, or we were going to trade for them. I don't remember what it was, but anyways, that doesn't matter. So unfortunately, as you guys know, my life is busy. So time passes. I'm talking time, months, to the point where even the person that originally introduced me to the person, have you connected with him yet? Have you guys got to meet up? And I'm like, no, it's just been crazy. Where he lives, where I live, it's not easy to get to. I've got family, I've got commitments, I got a house, blah, 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 right? And it's true, right? It is what it is. So this past summer, him and I, this person and I stayed in contact, the person I got connected with, rarely, occasionally, but we stayed in contact. And then this summer, we started talking. And we started connecting about the original bottles that he had wanted that I had, and he then started asking about other things I had. So I started looking through all my bottles I had purchased, saved, whatever, and I had quite a few that I had not opened because I had seconds, thirds, fourths of some of them, to be honest with you. Because sometimes when you find these bottles that you want, depending, and see that this is the thing with rum right now, right? Where it hasn't exploded, it hasn't become bourbon. It hasn't become tequila and mezcal yet, right? Even tequila and mezcal is insane. Not insane yet. It's getting there though. You can see prices starting to increase, but it wasn't at that level yet. So like I could buy bottles that were bottled 10 years ago for still $150, $200, knowing that if I was patient enough, I had multiples of them, patient enough with them, they're not made anymore, that I could possibly keep them for myself, which is great, add them to my collection, or possibly use them for trade. So we started talking that night, and there were several bottles that I ended up sending him pictures of, sending him from my list, and he wanted several of them. So we decided that because there were so many of them, and I was good, right? I gave them to him at my cost. I didn't upcharge him or anything like that. I was like, look, you're going to do something cool for me, and we're going to figure something out. Then that's what I do. I'm not going to rip somebody off that somebody else that I know connected me with. So we started talking, and he said, I've got some bottles too. He's like, do you want to make a trade? I said, yeah, that works out good. That way we don't have to exchange cash. We don't have to do anything like that. Let's just go ahead and just trade each other things for things that you want that you can't get your hands on, and things that maybe I want that I can't get my hands on. So he started going through his collection, and we had previously talked about a Caroni that he had. And so I was really leery about asking for that first when we started talking about trades, but I then started looking at all the bottles that he wanted and what I had paid for them and what the value of all of them was. And I told him, I said, hey, would you be up for trading? What the very first thing would be the Caroni, and he said yes. So lo and behold, I won't go into specifics, I won't go into detail, I won't go into any of that stuff. Lo and behold, I have a bottle. And honestly, it was one of the ones that I was looking at, and I don't even think I've taken a picture yet. I don't think I've posted anywhere. I have shared it already with somebody, my buddy Jordan, because he's a rum nerd just like me. But I have a bottle. It is one of the Valère bottlings, if I'm not mistaken, and it is everything that I had expected it to be based on what I just told you, right? Often rich with notes of tar, rubber, tropical fruit, smoke, spice, heavy, right? It's very, very heavy. It's not light in any way, shape, and form. It's very heavy. So I have the 21-year-old Caroni rum. It is 100% Trinidad rum. It is extra strong. I'm going to pull it out of the box. I think I've drank a little bit of it. Yeah, I drank a little bit of it, a couple ounces. So yeah, it is a Valère bottling. It is 57.1 ABV, percent by alcohol, or alcohol by volume. So let me tell you a little bit about it here. So this one specifically was distilled at the distillery in February of 1996. It was aged in Trinidad until February 22nd of 2017, and then bottled in France in April 2017. So if you think about that, Valère went down there in 2004, and for this barrel, at least for this bottle, he went down there in 2004, found this rum, and purchased it. And now this bottle sat down there from 2004 to 2017, where then it was picked up in February 22nd of 2017. Moved to France. God, can you just think about that from a shipping perspective? Let's talk about that for a second. You're moving rum across an ocean that was like, I talked to you guys about the history of this rum, what it means to Trinidad, what it means to like have this, right? Like the rum industry starts probably perking back up in 2017, and then you're going to take this thing, you're going to put it on a boat, and you're going to ship it over to France. I'm like, my anxiety would be through the roof at that point. So I have a bottle of it, and it is 21 years old, and it's everything that you would expect it to be. It's amazing to have it in my collection. Let me see if I popped it. Hold on. Ooh, there it goes. man, I mean, just smelling it. And that's the thing with it too. I remember I'm not going to drink it because this is one of these things that I don't want to drink by myself. I definitely want to drink it with friends. I want other people to experience this. I provided a sample to the person that connected me and the other person where I got this from. I've shared this with my buddy Jordan. I'm going to share it with other people that want to try something like this as well. I know Troy, my buddy Troy, will want to try it because he really liked the Guyana rums that I had, which were high ester content. But I really want other people to try this because you're trying a piece of history. You're trying something that just doesn't exist anymore, and it's unique. And it's everything I just told you it lives up to. Notes of tar, rubber, tropical fruits, smoke, and spice. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. And on the nose, I'm smelling it out of the bottle, so that could be a little bit of the impact as well. I'm not pouring it into a glass. But I remember on the nose, you don't get a lot of that tar and rubber. But man, as soon as you drink it, it's crazy. It's so prevalent and it's so there. And it's so unique. So I'm really excited to have a bottle of this. It is probably one of my most prized bottles that I have. Yes, I will slow roll it, but yes, I will also drink it. This is not, I opened this bottle within 2 days of getting it. Yeah, 2 days of getting it. I got it on a Thursday night, a day of getting it. I'm sorry. I got this on a Thursday night. And then that Friday we opened it because I'm not, I would love to hold this and hold it for the value that it has. So this sold recently at an auction, that same auction I was just talking to you about. This same bottle sold at the auction for €460. €460. So it's not one of the more expensive ones. It's not one of the $3,000 ones. It's not one of the cheap ones. It's in between. But this is what I would imagine it to taste like. And that's why I was glad that I got. First of all, I was glad I got it because I didn't have to technically pay for it. I paid for it in bottles I traded, but they were bottles that I had planned on either keeping or trading anyways. So even if this thing was a complete dud, I was willing to take the risk on it. But I also had run a ton of reviews. This was one of the better ones that a lot of people had talked about. So really happy to have it. So man, I'll tell you, if you guys are rum nerds and you can save up your pennies and maybe get a bottle, I would certainly encourage you to do that. If you're a rum nerd and that amount of money is out of your spending budget, completely understand. Try to find it somewhere. Try to find a bottle at a bar and try it. Right. I think you will be even an ounce, half an ounce. To be honest to God, talk to the person that's pouring the drinks, an ounce, half an ounce, whatever, right? Keep the cost low. If it's, say, I don't know, $80 for an ounce and a half, see if you can negotiate a half an ounce, right? Talk to the bartenders. A lot of bartenders will do that for you, but you have to try it. It's a piece of history, both from a cultural perspective, from a world perspective, from a country perspective, from a people perspective, and from the spirit world perspective. It is a piece of history in every single way possible. That to have a bottle, I feel extremely blessed, and to be able to share that bottle with others, I find it. I find it another blessing, right? Because that's how I told you guys again. I got into this arena, this spirit world, the world of liquor and alcohol, was friends sharing things with me as well. So if you get the chance to do that, do it. Get a bottle, try a bottle, find somebody that has one, and I'm willing to share it. I think it's awesome, and I don't think you'll be disappointed in any way, shape, and form. So cheers to you, Valere, for finding these bottles. Cheers to you for releasing them and understanding the historical content. And this is where I go back to and say, right, wonder if this distillery continued on making these rums now and didn't ever fold. Would there be the hype? Would there be the the want for it. There was a recent release from the Trinidad flag series and it was great. It was fantastic. I had a sample of it in Orlando. I'm trying to think of the name of the place, but I had a sample down there, and it was amazing, and it was great, and it was fantastic. And I'm like, okay, that's a Trinidad rum. Like, Trinidad rums are legit. So like, would I possibly, like, would Caroni be what it is today if it was still functioning, still a good distillery, still making product? Would the rise in the rum world, would Caroni be that special rum? Or is it because it's no longer a distillery? Is it because it closed? Is it because of this history and this discovery of it and all of these things and the limitedness of it? Is that's what's driving the price up? One will never know. You can assume. I believe it would. I don't think it would be where it is right now in scarcity. I don't think it would be where it is right now in price. I think that the older stock would have a higher value than the newer stock. So even the stocks I just told you, 1996s, your 20-year-olds, things like that, right? I think it would. But I also question, I don't think it'd be as high. I think that this is such a unique pour that the rum world would go crazy over it. And I think that it's something to think about, right? It's really good to ponder and consider. Thanks for talking to me, or thanks for listening to me through this whole story. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. It was really, really fun to put together and do the research on, something that was near and dear to my heart for a while as well. So, all right, let's jump into our next segment. All right, here we go. Now it's time for the Dram Digest. Here's a quick pour of what's been in my glass since the last episode. New finds, old favorites, and everything in between. Let's dive in. All right. It's Dram Digest time. That's right. It is Dram Digest time. So honestly, the last couple weeks have not been that crazy from a Dram Digest perspective. I've drank Wild Turkey. Great. I have had that Puncher's Chance from Max's Bottle Shop, that it's Wild Turkey distillate, which I absolutely love. Great. That's fantastic. But I really haven't had that much. I think I had a little bit of Tequila Ocho. Last night I forgot the bottle. Jeez. Last night I had G4 Reposado, which was fantastic. I have a bottle of G4 Reposado, and I have the Añejo and the Still Strength. So last night I was craving after dinner a Reposado, and I was going to reach for the El Tesoro single barrel because I still have a half a barrel left and then a different pick. And I said, no, I want the G4 one. So I dug to the back of the shelf and grabbed out the G4 Repo and enjoyed that last night. That was great. That's a fantastic bottle of Reposado. If you guys can find G4 tequila, the Reposado, it's really, really good. Any G4 is good. Let's be honest. Any single one of them is good. But and I've had the Tequila Ochos, right, and things like that. So all the normal things that I usually drink as my dailies. But I had a couple new things. Well, not new to me, kind of. I reached back in, and last night or Friday night, I was craving a rye. So as you guys know, my love and affection for Max's Bottle Shop and Ritesh over there in Johns Creek, Georgia. He did a barrel pick recently of a rye, or not recently, a while ago. Bottling date on this is May of 2024. But he did a barrel pick of rye and bourbon, and I was craving a rye. And so this is a Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye. Comes in at a whopping 134 proof, 67% alcohol by volume. And man, it's fantastic. So this is out of Barrel House 107. Great rye. This thing is solid as solid can be. It's not unique like my wasabi. I should call it the wasabi rye. As you guys know, there's a rye that tastes like wasabi. It doesn't taste like wasabi, but it hits my sinuses like wasabi does. But this bottle is fantastic. This bottle is going to end up getting killed pretty quickly, I think. So, great bottle. Cheers to Ritesh, man. You guys, you literally can do no wrong in everything I've ever had from you, and I think it's great. Thank you, man. The next bottle is mezcal. All right. So I got a new bottle of mezcal. So I have continued to try to go down the mezcal rabbit hole a little bit more. I read an article recently as well that was really unique with mezcal. And it's also made me, how do I say this? It's made me really be thoughtful about my purchases for mezcal. And I think it's made me really understand that my palate is going to be very unique when it comes to mezcal. So what I don't want, and we've talked about this, is what I find with bottlings of mezcal is that you have your standard producers of mezcal that make it, and I'm not saying it's bad quality. I'm just saying it doesn't have, all it has is the smoky flavor. To me, I do not find that to be a quality mezcal. Sorry if it is to those producers that do that, right? But for me, it doesn't. Let's put it this way. It's not that it's not quality. I'll take this all back. It's not that it's not quality. It's not for me. It's not for my palate. I need more than just the smoke punch in a mezcal. When I've done research recently, I found that, let's talk about brands like Cinco Sentidos, where if you look at the bottle, it says an agave distillate or something like that on the bottle. It's not qualified as mezcal from Mexico. The reason is because they do not let the CRT in Mexico dictate how this is made. It's very unique. It's macro batched, right? And if you follow the CRT and you get the certification from the CRT, you have to make it like a certain way. You have to follow certain standards, protocols, all of those different things, which then might lead you into not maintaining the history, not maintaining the way that it should be made, right? The way that's been made for generations and years and so on and so forth. So you're talking about using things like underground ovens, volcanic stone, mashing things with axes and with mallets and things like that. So I started doing research, and I'm going to continue being picky about the mezcal I purchase. I'm going to continue to be picky about the brands that I'm going to associate with mezcal because of the impacts to the local community and everything in Mexico as well. And I'm going to be continually focused on doing my research before I purchase a brand. Cinco Sentidos is one brand that I will continue to support. There is also another brand, which I have a bottle that I purchased from my friend, through my friend, I should say, and am going to hopefully pick it up soon. Even if it's not soon, that's fine. But Respiral is another one that I have recently purchased. Though they give actually some of the proceeds back to the individual distillers in the locations where it's distilled. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. So I want to continue on with that tradition and making sure that I am doing things and buying brands and giving back to areas that are beneficial. They give back, and they're brands that are not mass produced. I don't want mass production in any way, shape, and form. So with that said, I have bought a new one, Ultramundo. So this is mezcal, Ultramundo. So it is mezcal artisanal. One of the other things I found out too about mezcal is if you look for artisanal or the distillate from agave, or artisanal, then it is made by methods that are traditional methods, and it is therefore probably an indication of a quality product. So this is Ultramundo. It is agave was asperima, if I'm saying that right, cooking. So they cooked it underground, volcanic stone-lined pit oven with mesquite firewood. They milled it by hand with an axe. They fermented it at ambient yeast in open-air oak barrels, and then they distilled it twice in a wood-fired copper pot with wooden condenser. So this was made by Eduardo and Sergio Benjamin. And this was bottle number 281 of 612, coming in at 49% ABV. Absolutely beautiful bottle. The label on the front's almost like a leather with a turtle on it. They're like a roadrunner in the background. Absolutely. I just saw that there is a cow being taken up by a UFO on here too. That's awesome. There's a moon at the top. Yeah, a really, really cool brand. Really enjoyed it. My first pour was again, the thing I love about mezcal is not every single mezcal tastes the same. And I think that's really what I appreciate about it. So this one was very unique. Pop rocks on my tongue, like not the flavor of pop rocks, but you know how your tongue gets that tingly, like that fizzing thing. My tongue had that. My throat had that. Really, really unique. Great flavor on it. A little bit heavier smoky profile, very peppery on the nose, jalapeno pepper on the palate as well. Fantastic bottle. One of the smokier bottles that I have, which I don't mind because there's other complexity with it. And I'm actually excited to let it open up with a little bit of air. But man, fantastic bottle. Shout out to Off Premise in Chicago. Guys, I've talked about Off Premise for a couple times now. Dude has an amazing selection of things that you just can't get everywhere. And when you can't get these things at certain locations, especially for like me in Georgia, I've never seen this bottle anywhere. Definitely try to find those people that you can connect with and support a local small business. They may not be local to you, but they're local to somebody, and that local, even though they may not be local to you, you can still create a relationship with them and support them from afar. So shout out to you guys at Off Premise. Appreciate you guys. But this is great. Great bottle of mezcal. Can't wait to share it with other people. The mezcal collection keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And I think it's going to grow more because I'm going back to Chattanooga in a couple weeks. And Chattanooga has got some pretty crazy and fun mezcal. So I'm pretty excited to go back up there. I might buy a Netta finally. We'll see. Definitely gonna look for more Cinco Sentidos because I need to. Now that I know, like I have so many Cinco Sentidos and I love every single one of them. Like I need to find a new one every single time and then buy it and try it because I really want to like explore more and more and more of it. So excited for that. So all right, that'll about do it. That's all I had in the Dram Digest today. But that'll about wrap up this episode of the Dram Amateur Podcast. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys so much. The recap of Caroni was really interesting, right? I hope I added to the allure of that and the mystique of it for you all. And I hope that, maybe I encourage you to say, hey, if I ever see this somewhere, I'll try it, or maybe set some funds aside and buy yourself a bottle. Treat yourself. Like they say on Parks and Rec. Donna and how can I remember Donna's name and not the other dude's name? But anyways, treat yourself. You got to treat yourself. It's that season. It's treat yourself season. So definitely do that. But thank you guys all so much for listening. You're all amazing. Every single one of you guys that listen to the podcast and support the podcast and collaborate with me. I certainly appreciate it. More to come in this gigantic world of spirits. I hope I introduce you to something new. I know that I am not in my silo. I'm not in a bourbon silo, a tequila silo, a rum silo, a mezcal silo. I'm all over the place, but that is my hope, that I open your eyes, I introduce you to something new, and then from that, your mind expands, and then you trickle that down to other people in your group, and you start to learn and start to try new things. And I hope it expands your knowledge and excitement about all these different spirits that are available to us right now. So cheers all. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for tuning into the Dram Amateur Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of spirits. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I certainly appreciate all the feedback and support. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes as we continue our exploration of bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. Cheers, and until next time, keep savoring every sip.